I was telling Frank I got a little guy, he's 9 years old, and how early are these kids getting exposed now to porn?
It's shocking, man. The average age of first exposure right now is 8 to 11 years old.
Which is insane. And I was just thinking of how much struggle I had to go to get access to it. And fortunately, there are devices out there like Covenant Eyes. I put that on my phone and all my kids' devices 19 months ago and haven't viewed any pornography since then. And what we wanted to talk about today is the reward for fighting this battle, recognizing that this is a battle, it's an ongoing battle, it doesn't disappear at any age, and how to start if you want to conquer this lust of the flesh, this passion that is very real inside of every man. It comes with a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, and then a lot of isolation and being unable to experience sex the way it was intended, and not being able to experience a woman on many, many, many deep layers, and we just experience many, many women on one layer. And I think that is like you just missed out on one of the most beautiful opportunities of life. So Frank works with men like on the front lines who want to regain control over this constant temptation. I want to know, what's the first step? When men come to you, first of all, before you give them the first step, like, where are they? Like, why do they feel like they need to conquer this? Because most men, it's just like, it's not a big deal. I've got this under control. I just every once in a while, it's not hurting anybody. It's just normal. I'm a dude. I get urges. I get stressful. Like, so why are they coming for help?
Yeah, I mean, and Vince, you've witnessed it. I think in your own life, you've been very vulnerable with your journey that you've been on over these past couple of years. Unfortunately, so many guys buy into those lies that you shared. It's not harming anybody. It's a normal thing. Every guy is doing it, right? We've been wired and conditioned in our society and in our culture that this is normal. Most of the guys that we work with, because we serve high-level professionals, entrepreneurs, business owners, these guys have reached a point in their life where it's almost do or die. Like, it's unfortunate, but men need to almost experience a rock bottom
Right.
in order to truly be woken up. And one of my missions is to spread the awareness, is to educate the dangers of how it hijacks your reward system, on how it disconnects you from your relationship with God, which is going to disconnect you from every relationship in your life. But most of the men that we serve and work with have experienced some loss in their life, or on their verge of losing either their relationship. They feel disconnected from their kids. They feel alone and isolated at work. They're not living up to their potential. So these guys experience a massive wake-up call, and then that's where we can step in and really lead them down the path
So
of
you're
transformation.
not selling them on coming off porn. They've been enslaved to it.
Yeah, because that's another lie, right? Is for the guys that are struggling. They think that their problem is pornography,
Huh.
and what we have to understand is pornography has become the solution to the other problems in your life. You feel stressed. Pornography can make you feel less stressed. You feel alone. Pornography for a short term can make you feel connected. You feel rejected. Porn's going to accept you. So if you can identify what those problems are that you're using porn to solve, then you can experience real breakthrough.
So it's another vice, just like alcohol, just like
100%.
narcotics for some guys, like work.
On a much dangerous level, right? Because your drug dealer's in your pocket.
Right. So what's the first step? If somebody comes to you and say, hey, Frank, I'm ready to fight this battle. I want to win this battle. Where do you even start?
Yeah, I mean, you shared the secret yesterday in the event, right? All transformation starts with truth. When you're caught up in an addictive cycle with porn and masturbation, it is a secret.
Right.
For most people, it's something that you do in secrecy, in isolation, and it's something that makes you feel more isolated. So the first step of any transformational breakthrough is going to be honesty. Honesty with yourself, and honesty with the people that are in your life that you can feel safe and trusted with.
Yeah, how do you help them manage the shame? I think that's where I can connect. It creates so much shame. Like, I'm 44. Like, am I going to turn into a dirty old man? Like, that's the reality. But God isn't shame, right? God is forgiveness. God is grace. God is love. So I think this thing pushes you away from the path that can actually accept you and say, hey, I did put this passion inside you, but I also put the spirit of self-control. I also put that spirit inside of you. So how do you start helping guys get some control in this area?
Yeah, I think the shame piece is one that I identified very early on, that most approaches, whether it was in the church, whether it was in small groups or other recovery organizations, weren't addressing it, because once again, so many people go about managing the behavior, controlling the temptation. In reality, what you really need to experience is an identity transformation. Like, when there's a death of that old self, when there's a death of the person that is stuck, the shame stays with you, right? And if we can experience this radical transformation of how we see ourselves, the lens at which we see ourselves through, the lens at which we operate in the world as. So it's a complete shifting of our identity and walking in this new conqueror identity, because a conqueror doesn't experience shame anymore. So it's not a tactic, it's got to be an identity transformation that leaves the shame behind you.
Right, which is how we were originally created.
Yeah.
In the garden, we were created
naked and
perfect.
unashamed.
We were already so we have to reclaim our identity in Christ.
And walk in integrity, right? You know, truth is when you're honest to others. Integrity is when you are honest with yourself. So no matter what you say, if the person that you look at in the mirror, the one looking back, isn't walking in true identity or in integrity, if there's still something that you're keeping secrecy, right? You know, you're always going to struggle with that shame, because that person that you see is not who you really are. So these guys experience truth and integrity in how they show up.
So how do you layer in some of your steps? So for me, I went cold turkey. You know, I didn't really think it was an issue, but when I separated, I needed to hear God's voice in my life. I could not afford to distance myself any further, because God was the only person that was fully present, available, with his arms around me. So to me, I was like the only partner I had, and I didn't want him to be anywhere out of proximity. So for me, I took the cold turkey approach, and I just put covenant eyes on all my devices.
Yeah.
You were mentioning that you went through a period where you didn't date at all for a couple of years after a previous breakup. I mean, I'm curious to know, like, what was the value in that? Because that sounds like intriguing, but then I'm like, you didn't date anyone for 3 years? Like, what did you do? It almost sounds like impossible.
Yeah. It forced me to look within, right? It forced me to answer a lot of the questions on how I was even using other things, right? You know, as an escape outlet, right? It definitely brought me so much closer to God, my relationship with God over those 3 years as a new Christian. Like, I got saved in 2018. So this was early on in my walk. And I think before I even got back into the dating world, like, I needed to have that conversation with God. Like, God, I want to be a father, I want to be a husband, but if it's not in your will for my life, I am okay. So until I truly accepted that I could be alone forever, I didn't feel enough confidence to go back out there in the dating world. Because if I wasn't okay being alone, then that person that I'm pursuing, that person that I want, is never going to get the full version of me. So there was a lot of time in prayer. There's a lot of journal, self-introspectiveness, and yeah, I mean, it's been now, you know, 5 years porn free for me, and you know, I have an amazing woman in my life now that, you know, I don't think I would have ever been able to build the relationship that we have if I hadn't gone through that journey.
Dude, that's such a great story, man. It's really inspiring, man. Thanks for sharing.
No, thank you, man.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to hear, like, you did the work, man. You did the work. I remember, like, when you were in it. I remember it was years and years ago, and like, that's a real fight. And I think, you know, let's keep praying for Frank and all of our Christian brothers out there who are fighting this fight. I believe this is a fight that must be won. Hey, Frank, tell them where they can check out your work, man, and get plugged into, if anyone wants to take this fight head on with you.
Yeah, easy to find on the internet across all the platforms. Coach Frank Rich, YouTube, Instagram. Rebuilt Recovery is our organization. I believe we have built it into the world's leading #1 porn addiction recovery organization. So
awesome.
Rebuilt Recovery. Our podcast, The Rebuilt Man. We give tons of free value out there, 3 episodes a week, daily on YouTube, on Instagram. So yeah, Coach Frank Rich, Rebuilt Recovery. Appreciate you guys. We can serve you in any way. We're here to help.
Guys, thanks for watching. If you got some value, drop a like, drop a comment. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Level up or level off.